In the midst of the Cold War's geopolitical struggles, the Tibetan Uprising of 1959 emerged as a pivotal moment, casting a spotlight on the complex interplay of international forces, regional autonomy, and the aspirations of the Tibetan people. The documentary begins by delving into the unique cultural and political landscape of Tibet. An autonomous region with its distinct religious and cultural heritage, Tibet had been the subject of territorial disputes and power struggles between China and regional authorities, culminating in the presence of Chinese military forces in Lhasa, the capital of Tibet. The narrative unfolds the background of Chinese occupation in Tibet and the signing of the 17-point agreement in 1951. While this agreement ostensibly granted Tibet a degree of autonomy within the People's Republic of China, it was met with skepticism and resistance from Tibetans who viewed it as a compromise of their sovereignty. As tensions between Tibetans and Chinese authorities escalated, the documentary explores the Dalai Lama's flight to India in 1959. Faced with increasing repression and fearing for his safety, the Dalai Lama, along with a group of supporters, escaped to India, seeking asylum and international support for Tibet's cause. The documentary vividly recounts the events of the 1959 Tibetan Uprising in Lhasa. Tibetan citizens took to the streets, expressing their discontent with Chinese rule and calling for independence. The Chinese response was swift and brutal, leading to a violent crackdown on protesters and the Tibetan Uprising being crushed by the Chinese military. Against the backdrop of the Cold War, the documentary examines international reactions to the Tibetan Uprising. The United States, in an attempt to counter Chinese influence in the region, provided support to Tibetan resistance fighters. The CIA's involvement in training and equipping Tibetan guerrillas added a layer of complexity to the geopolitical dimensions of the Tibetan struggle. The aftermath of the 1959 Tibetan Uprising saw a dramatic shift in Tibet's political landscape. The region became more tightly integrated into the People's Republic of China, with cultural and religious institutions facing increased scrutiny. The documentary reflects on the ongoing struggles of Tibetans for autonomy and their efforts to preserve their unique cultural identity. The documentary concludes by exploring the Dalai Lama's continued exile in India and his global advocacy for Tibet's autonomy. The Dalai Lama's efforts to garner international support for Tibetan rights and his calls for dialogue with Chinese authorities remain central to the ongoing discourse on Tibet's political status. The 1959 Tibetan Uprising, as documented in this exploration, stands as a poignant chapter in Cold War history, encapsulating the aspirations of a people for autonomy and the geopolitical complexities that shaped their struggle. The events of 1959 reverberate in the ongoing Tibetan diaspora, cultural preservation efforts, and the global advocacy for Tibet's autonomy. The documentary sheds light on the resilience of the Tibetan people in the face of adversity and their enduring quest for self-determination in a complex and contested geopolitical landscape.